Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Welcome to our Saturday online Kashmir Cultural Heritage Awareness Series. Today is our 57th week. We are very pleased. Srimati Kamakshi Kalyanachandram is joining us again from Connecticut, USA for our prayer. Kamakshi ji has appeared before in our series.
मङ्गलचरणे मङ्गलवदने मङ्गलचरणे मङ्गलवदने मङ्गलदायिनी मङ्गलदायिनी कामाक्षी 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 मङ्गलदायिनी कामाक्षी गुरुगुहजननी गुरुगुहजननी जननी कुरु कल्याणं कुरु कल्याणं कुञ्जरी जननी कुञ्जरी जननी कुञ्जरी जननी कामाक्षी 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 कामाक्षी
Thank you, Kamakshi ji, for appearing in our series. Viewers, you can watch her. Yes, she has a YouTube channel, Jagati Kriti, right? That's the name.
Yes. Yeah, Jagati
To
Kriti.
listen, you can listen to more of her Carnatic renderings. As always, we would like to have you and your students joining in our series in the near future too.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We thank Kanchi Mud for our ongoing Kashmir initiatives. Offer our namaskarams to His Holiness Sri Shankar Vijayendra Saraswati Swamiji. Kanchi Mud has always been in the forefront, modestly working with the sole aim of national integration, spiritual enlightenment, and preserving the uniqueness of Kashmir. As we know, Kashmir is our cultural heritage. We are very pleased to welcome Sri Kishan Kemmu for his presentation today, that is Kashmir, the Changing Dynamics. Just a brief intro about Kishan ji. He was born and brought up in Kashmir and his initial schooling in Srinagar, followed by Masters in Management Studies from Birla Institute of Technology, Pilani. He is now settled in Mumbai. He has been a marketing professional and worked in the private corporate sector for about 40 years, handling different marketing functions in several companies from different industries. After retirement as the Chief Marketing Officer from a multinational company, he is associated with few companies as a marketing consultant. Presently, Kishanji is the president of Kashmiri Pandits Association, Mumbai. He has been associated with this social, cultural, and community service organization for the last 35 years and on the board of trustees of the association for the last 15 years. And one more important thing is, he is the son of Sri Motilal Kemmu, a renowned author, playwright, and a theatre personality who devoted his life for preserving the art, culture, and language of Kashmir and was honored with numerous state level and several national awards, notably the Sahitya Academy Award, Sangeet Natak Academy Award, Padma Shri, and Varisht Nagrik Saman. Kishan has prepared a wonderful presentation, being a marketing guy, and I just had a glimpse of his slides, which looked more like a recap of what we have done and moving forward. I requested him to consider appearing again as this may exceed more than 1 hour today. And hopefully will consider joining us again on October 1st. Kishanji, thank you for joining us and please take over.
Namaskar, Namaste, Vanakam, and good evening from Bombay. Mr. Shankar, thank you very much for this opportunity. And I would also like to express thanks to Kanchi Kamakoti Sangam and Madhyam Dharma Sangam. And thanks a lot to Mrs. Kamakshi Sundaram for a wonderful rendition to begin with. What a beginning. Thank you very much. To begin with, I would like to share a screen. I think, let me check whether it's not visible there. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, see, this is the one?
Yes, the Kashmir, the changing dynamics with a map of J&K.
Well, I don't know whether we can blow it like in PowerPoint.
I can, but because I can't see myself, so I wanted to know whether this is visible or not. I
Oh,
can't see
yeah,
myself.
it's there. But let me see whether we
Okay,
could.
then I will change it to a slideshow mode. Is it okay? Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, yeah, I can hear you. I am behind the screen.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, fine. Then let's start. I think let me begin with this map of Kashmir. The topic is Kashmir, the changing dynamics, and this is a map of J&K. On the right, what you see is a map what was when it became a part of India in 1947 after the British rule. There are three distinct divisions: Ladakh, Jammu, and Kashmir. On the right, you see the current status. You see the portion on the left, which is Pakistan occupied Kashmir, in short known as POK. On the right, in the reddish color, is Aksai Chin, which was the area ceded to China in the 62 war. And on top, you see that shaded portion, which is an area which Pakistan has ceded to China. So there is a bit of a truncation in the geography of J&K. Well, the one more point to note is that J&K, as we know, consisted of three distinct geographical locations: Ladakh, Jammu, and Kashmir. Distinct in many ways because even the population-wise, Ladakh was mostly a Buddhist-dominated area. Jammu has been a population-wise a Hindu-dominated area, and Kashmir has been a Muslim-dominated area after 14th century. Politically, the power has always remained in the Kashmir. And the other point to note is that the Kashmir conflict or the Kashmir problem, which we have been referring to for most of the independent India period, pertains mostly to Kashmir only. There was never an issue with Jammu or Ladakh. Now, I would like to quote here two paragraphs from Valley of Kashmir, written by Walter Lawrence, who was a commissioner from the British period in 1895. I start. Perhaps no country furnishes so curious a record of constant change as Kashmir, and it's a matter of surprise under rapid transition of governments varying in race, religion, and language. The people of the valley should have retained their peculiar nationality unimpaired. The frequent changes of rulers and the absence of continuity in the administration have had a powerful effect on the character of the Kashmiris. But the incidents of the physical history of the valley have also done much to unsettle the people and to make them suspicious and incredulous. Among the incidents of physical history, I shall include fires, floods, earthquakes, famines, and cholera. And it's hardly to be wondered at that a people constantly liable to these calamities should be skeptical and doubtful as to whether things were ordered for the best. The Kashmiri always gives me the idea that he has just recovered from a fright, or that he is daily expecting some great disaster, and hardly a day passes without a reference being made to the curse under which the people have fallen and to the sin which gave rise to this curse. This is from Valley of Kashmir, Walter Lawrence. Now, basically, focuses on two aspects: the rules and of governance, along with the race, religion, and language, which kept changing, and the physical aspects about the calamities which the Kashmir faced from time to time. Now we see the changes along the historical phases. For purpose of this talk, I have divided this into 8 periods: the ancient history, then the Hindu period, which goes up to 1343 AD, the Muslim period, which actually is starts from 1343 to 1819, about 500 years, but that can further be broken into three parts. The first, the Muslim period, known as Sultani Kashmir, then the period of Mughals, generally known as Padshahi Chagati or Shahani Mughlai, and then the last, the period of Pathans, which was known as Shahani Durrani. This was followed by the Sikh rule and Dogra rule. I have clubbed them in as one heading. Then we come to 1947 partition, and from partition to 1990, the period of independent India, and lastly 1990, the genocide, the seventh exodus of Kashmiri Pandits. Now, for sources which are the Nilmat Puran, well-known Kalhan's Raj Tarangani, which covers the history about Hindu kingdoms and Buddhism up to 1148 AD. The Jonaraja's Raj Tarangani, which extends up to 1417 AD and covers up to Zainul Abidin's rule. Sri Varajaina, which goes up to 1486 AD. Then that of Prajabhat, which covers up to period of Akbar's conquest of Kashmir, 1586 AD. Then Persian historians of Kashmir, Hyder Malik, Muhammad Azim, Narayan Kul, etc., which cover up to Mughal rule. Tariq of Birbal Kacheri and Gulzari Kashmir of Diwan Kriparam, which cover the Sikh rule and the Dogra rule. And Valley of Kashmir, which I have already mentioned, by Walter Lawrence, who was the settlement commissioner of British in the year 1895 AD. I'll be referring to Valley of Kashmir more often. The reason being because Valley of Kashmir itself has referred to all the other sources above. Now, if we start from Nilmat Puran, the ancient history, there have been sessions in the past, so I will run through this quickly. The Kashmir was known as Satisar, the lake of goddess Sati. It was a huge lake, long time ago. Then it said, the legend goes that Kashyap Rishi, the saint Kashyapa, prayed to Lord Shiva and asked for a piece of land. He got a boon. Then Lord Vishnu, in the form of Varah Avatar, pierced the mountain at Varahmula. Today, this place is known as Baramula. And at this place, the water flowed out and the land emerged, the land which became Kashmir Valley. It got known as Kashyap Mar after the sage Kashyapa.
Did you change the slide?
No.
Okay.
No.
Just wanted to check.
Then Kashyap Mar gradually changed to Kashmar and then on to Kashmir. Now, scientifically, geologists have also confirmed the emergence of Kashmir Valley from a lake which burst at Baramula, and they attribute it to a massive earthquake. And this is confirmed by the existence of lacustrine deposits known as karevas in the local language, which are there as a matter of proof. Again, quoting from Valley of Kashmir, what Walter Lawrence says, he refers to the glorious past of Vedic Hindu Kashmir, says, by studying the percept of Nilmat Puran, the Brahmins were unable to rout the demons, and Kashmir became permanently inhabited about the 20th century before the Christian era. In another para, he says there's enough historical reason to believe that Kashmiris were Shaivites from the earliest period. Not mentioned which period, but earliest. Now we'll quickly run through the glorious past of Kashmir of this period with a reference through its ancient temples and then some kings. The first temple that comes to mind is that of Hari Parbat. It's, you can see the pictures of the hill on the right, and there is a fort on top, and just before the fort there is a temple, and the second picture is that of the temple. It's known as Sharika Peeth because of the temple of goddess Sharika. The legend goes that goddess Sharika Devi killed the demon Jalodbhav, who after the lake was drained out, was there was a giant who lived there, the demon known Jalodbhav. He wouldn't let people settle down. Then the
No, we are still seeing only the map.
oh, that means the slide is not moving.
Yes, that's why I was wondering. It's
Okay,
still,
I think that there's a problem with sharing of the slide because this thing shows. Let me stop sharing and start again. Let me just try. Can you give me a minute?
yes, sure.
I
It
think
was
I
just
will stop
showing the
sharing.
same.
I will. It's not. Okay, let me share.
I think you have to keep moving in that screen also while sharing.
Moving. Let me just check.
You have to go to that
Can you
window and
can you
change.
can you see the screen now?
1 second.
Sources.
Yes, this is
Okay.
okay.
Now if I move it, just let me know if it's moving.
Yes, now okay. It's ancient history legend, Neelamat
Okay.
Purana.
This is what I have already covered. Yeah.
Yes,
Okay. Now then I won't go to the full screen. I'll move like this only, because then we can
correct.
confirm. Okay. This is
Yes,
the
okay.
glorious
Glorious
past.
fact.
This is what I have just read out, and then we come to this picture. This is what I was talking
Hari
about.
Parbat. Okay.
You can see Hari Parbat now, right?
Yes. Now
Okay.
you are talking about the temple. Now we could see that. Yes.
Yes, the temple known as Chakreshwara. Often it's said that the goddess Sharika, when this Jalod Ba wouldn't let people settle there, so then people prayed to goddess Sharika Devi. On the prayers of the devotee, Sharika Devi appeared in the form of a her. Her is a bird in Kashmiri. The common name is Maina in Hindi. So the bird dropped a pebble on the demon Jalodbab from above. On reaching this demon, this pebble would become large and large enough as a hill. And the demon got killed under this hill. So the name of the hill became Hari Parvat. And that's how it's called Hari Parvat. The mother goddess resides here as Sharika Devi, also known as Tripura Sundari. Now, what inside the temple, there she resides in the form of a Swayambhu Sri Chakra, also called Mahayantra. This mystic chakra is engraved on the holy Shila, a rock that is smeared with sindoor. You can see the picture of the rock on the right, and below that there is the description of this chakra. And Sharika Devi also is the Ishta Devi for a large number of Kashmiris. There are three Sharika Devis. One. Another point about Hari Parbat is this: since Sharika Devi is the presiding deity of Kashmir, she is considered as a Siddha. It's considered as a Siddha Pita, Shakti Pita as well, and the temple is surrounded by 8 Bhairav temples. Therefore, it's known as Ashtabhairav. The Ashtabhairav temples that surround the temple of goddess Sharika Devi are named as Anandeshwara Bhairav, Tushkaraj Bhairav, Mangaleshwara Bhairav, Puran Raj Bhairav, Bahukeshwara Bhairav, Hatkeshwara Bhairav, and Vetal Raj Bhairav and Sheetalnath Bhairav. Now, these were the city of Srinagar was divided into 8 wards, and each of these wards under the protection of one of these 8 Bhairavas. The reference of Hari Parbat you'll also find in many times as Kohimaran. Now, this was part of the drive when they had changed the names of many places into Islamic names. So in the Google or in many places, you also, if you search for Kohimaran, you will get the same thing as Hari Parbat. The next temple that we look at is Kheer Bhavani temple, a very popular temple. There's a legend behind this temple also. It's situated at Tulamola village in Gandarbal district, a mystic water spring, and in the midst of the spring there is a marble shrine of goddess Kheer Bhavani. The legend goes that Mother Kheer Bhavani appeared to Ravana due to his devotion, but later on, due to his vicious acts, she requested Lord Hanuman to take her to Satisar, which is Kashmir. Goddess Kheer Bhavani is also known as Maharagya. The mystic water spring that is there in the Kheer Bhavani has its own importance. It keeps changing its colors occasionally. And she is also the presiding deity or Ishta Devi for a large number of Kashmiri Pandits. Shankaracharya Hill is known as Shankaracharya Hill, and on top there is a temple of Shiva temple, very ancient temple. A brief about this temple, it said that King Gopaditya in the 370 BC of Gona, the dynasty, named this hill as Gopadri Hill. Later, the authorities seem to agree that the first religious edifice on this commanding site was built by Jaloka, who was the son of great Buddhist convert Samrat Ashoka, about 200 BC. But Jaloka had reverted back to Shaivism. Thereafter, the temple was subsequently rebuilt and dedicated to Jeteshwara, a title of Mahadeva by Raja Gopiditya, who reigned in from AD 253 to 328 AD. The present name to the hill was after Adi Shankara, who said to have visited in the 9th century and meditated at top of the hill. The original Shivlingam was destroyed by Sultan Sikandar Butshikan, but later repaired by Maharaja Ranjit Singh during Sikh rule and during the Dogra rule. The references to Shankaracharya you'll also find in the name of Takhte Suleiman. Again, like Kohimaran for Hari Barbat, Takhte Suleiman was the name given to this hill. We move on to Martand Sun Temple, a very grand temple dedicated to sun god, also known as the pride of Kashmir of its time. The foundation stone is said to have been laid somewhere between 370 and 500 AD. It was partly constructed during the period of King Ranaditya, but completed by King Lalitaditya. The outer walls are 90 yards, width 56 and 84 columns. This is what lies there today in ruins. The temple was broken down. An artistic impression of how it might have been. Then we move on to Amarnath Cave, another place of devotion which has been there since more than 5,000 years. According to Neelamat Puran Amarnath Mahatmya, it was here that Lord Shiva narrated the tale of immortality to Goddess Parvati. Before revealing the truth about the immortality, Lord Shiva, as a preparation, left his Vahan vehicle Nandi, the bull, at Pahalgaon, that time known as Balgaon, which became Pahalgaon later on. Release the moon at Chandanwari, still goes by the same name. The snake at Lake Sheshnag, still goes the same name. Lord Ganesh at Mahagunush Parvat, that's how it's called today. It was Mahaganesh Parvat originally. Panchbhuta at Panchatarani, that is the 5 elements of earth, water, air, fire, and sky at Panchatarani. And finally, he created Rudra, Kalagni, and ordered him to set afire and eliminate every living thing in and around the holy cave. Then Lord Shiva took Parvati goddess inside the cave to tell her the Amar Katha. But as a matter of chance, one egg which was lying beneath the deer skin remained protected. The pair of pigeons which were born out of this egg became immortal, and having listened to the secret of immortality, that is Amar Katha. As Lord Shiva has revealed the secrets of immortality to his wife Parvati in the holy cave, therefore the place had been named as Amareshwar. Amarnath is a name which gradually, these two pictures are of the Amarnath, the cave on the left, and inside the ice lingam which gets formed during the season. As per the religious belief, the lingam grows and shrinks with the phases of moon reaching its height during the summer months. This ice lingam reaches its full size on the moon day and then begins to wane and disappear on the no moon day. By its side, there are 4 to 5 ice formations resembling figures of various deities, including that of Parvati and Ganesha. Lord Mrityunjay is considered to be the god of immortality. The renowned ice links of Amarnath and the cave are a natural symbol of this form of Shiva. We touch upon Sharda Peeth, a ruined Hindu temple and an ancient center of learning located in the present Pakistan occupied Kashmir. It was between 6th and 12th century that it was a very prominent temple and a university in the Indian subcontinent, known in particular for its library. The stories recount scholars traveling long distances to access its texts. It played a key role in the development popularization of the Sharda script in North India, and as a result of which Kashmir used to be referred as the Sharda Desh. As one of the Mahashakti Pithas, it's believed that it represents the spiritual location of goddess Sati's fallen right hand. Sharda Peeth used to be one of the three holiest sites of pilgrimage for Kashmiri Pandits, alongside Marthan Sun Temple and the Amarnath Temple. A picture of the ruins of Sharda Peeth in the Pakistan occupied Kashmir as they are today, you see on the right. Today, the location is about 150 kilometers from Muzaffarabad, which is the capital of POK, and about 130 kilometers from Srinagar. It's about 10 kilometers away from the line of control. Then, is situated about 1980 meters above sea level along the Neelam River in the village Sharda, near valley of Mount Harmukh, which is believed to be Mount Harmukh is believed by Kashmiri Pandits to be the abode of Shiva. Again, Sharda Peeth, historically probably commissioned by Lalitaditya Mukta somewhere between 724 and 760, though no definitive evidence exists in that favor. One doesn't know for sure, but that is what is assumed to be. Al-Biruni recorded the place for the first time as a revered shrine. By the 8th century, the temple was a site of pilgrimage, attracting devotees from as far as the present Bengal. By 11th century, it was among the most revered places of worship in the Indian subcontinent, described in Al-Biruni's Chronicles of India. Significantly, it featured not in his description of Kashmir, but in his list of most famous Hindu temples in the Indian subcontinent. Its earliest mention in the Nilmat Puran is there in the 11th century poet Bilhana describes both the spiritual and academic elements of Sharda Peeth. He describes Kashmir as a patron of learning and Sharda Peeth as the source of that reputation. In the 14th century text Madhvya Shankara Vijayam, there is a text unique to Sharda Peeth known as the Sarvijnana Peetham, or throne of omniscience. There were 4 thrones, each representing an entrance of the temple corresponding to one of the points of the compass, which only a learned man from that direction could symbolically open. It's said that the southern gate was still closed, and it was only during Adi Shankara's visit, which he being from South India, he took it upon himself to pass this challenge and open the southern entrance. It's believed to be one of the earliest shrines dedicated to Shaktism. Kashmiri Pandits believe that the goddess Sharda, worshipped in Sharda Peeth, is a tripartite embodiment of the goddess Shakti, Sharda, which is the goddess of learning, Saraswati, goddess of knowledge, and Vagdevi, goddess of speech. Though the site may be older, the archaeologists are of the opinion that the Marthan temple, the Sharda Peeth, both may have been built about 1500 years ago and destroyed about 700 years ago by Sikandar Butshikan, who used brute force to establish Islam in Kashmir. On the right, you see a picture of Sharda Peeth, an old one taken by the writer archaeologist Oral Stein. The next in this temples would be a place. There's a place called Avantipura, which was the capital of its founder, King Avantivarman, whose reign was there from 854 to 883 AD. He erected 2 magnificent temples, one dedicated to Lord Vishnu called Avanti Swamin, and the other to Lord Shiva called Avantishwara. These temples witnessed mass destruction during medieval times and were reduced to ruins. I again quote a paragraph from Walter Lawrence. He describes about this destruction of Avantipur temple. And he also quotes another source from Trebek. Most of the Kashmirian temples are more or less injured, but more particularly those at Avantipura, which are mere heaps of ruins. Speaking of these temples, Trebek has said that it's scarcely possible to imagine that the state of ruin to which they have been reduced has been the work of time or even of men, as their solidity is fully equal to that of the most massive monuments of Egypt. Earthquakes must have been the chief agent of their overthrow. This was the assumption of Trebek, but Lawrence disagrees, and he says, I have quoted this passage to show the utter confusion that characterizes the ruins of Avantipura temples. In my opinion, their overthrow is too complete to have been the result of an earthquake, which would have simply prostrated the buildings in large masses. But the whole of the superstructure of these temples is now lying in one confused heap of stones, totally disjoint from one another. I believe, therefore, and I am fully justified in saying from my own experience that such a complete and disruptive overturn could only have been possibly achieved by gunpowder. And then in this description, he gives a link of how perhaps this Sikandar Buchikan may have got access to gunpowder. This is ruins of Avantipura temples. There is a place called Bhumzu at the mouth of Lidar Valley and easily reached from Anantnag. These caves, there are cave temples there. These caves are situated on the left bank of Lidar River, about a mile north of village Bhavan, the largest being dedicated to Kaladeva. The cave temple stands at the far end of a natural but artificially enlarged fissure in the limestone cliff. There is no record or tradition as to the time of the erection of these temples, but you see lingams and temples here and there and broken structures. Some of the pictures are there. Dates perhaps from the first or second century of the Christian era. And close by is another cave of still greater extent but no architectural accessories. At the foot of the cave, there are two temples which have been converted into Muslim ziyarats. The larger of the two is named as the Ziyarat of Baba Bandin Sahib, a disciple of famous Muslim saint of Kashmir, Sheikh Nuruddin. Both are to a considerable extent copies of the cave temple Bhumzu. Then Pandrechan is another place which lies on the Srinagar Anantnag road and is easily reached from Srinagar, erected during the reign of King Partha, who governed Kashmir from 921 AD to 931, by his Prime Minister Meru, who dedicated it to Mahadeva under the title of Meru Vardhan Swami. What is unique about this temple is its stone roof, chiseled out of a single stone and inventively carved. The modern name of Pandrethan is a corruption of Sanskrit Purandisthan, that is the old capital. Currently, this temple, the picture is a recent one, and in the complex of this temple, again you see various uh, ruins of lingams lying here and there. It's again part of a destruction which happened in the 13th, 14th century in that period. See the ruins of another temple, Patan. Patan lies on the Srinagar Baramulla road, about halfway between these places. It was King Shankar Varman who succeeded Avanti Varman and reigned. His reign was from 883 to 901 AD. In conjunction with his queen Sugandha, he dedicated to Mahadeva under the title of Shankar Gauresa and Sugandheshwara two temples at his new capital, Shankarpura. This town is identified with now called Patan. Payach is another place where there again you see very ancient temple. This is ascribed to King Narendra Ditya from 483 to 490 AD. The sculptures over the doorways are defaced, but apparently represent Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, and Goddess Durga. The cella, 8 feet square, has an open doorway on each of the four sides. It is composed of only 10 stones, the four corners each being a single stone. The sculptured tympanums and over the doorways are four others, while two more compose the pyramid roof. The lower of these being an enormous mass of 8 feet square by 4 feet in height. Total temple is made of 10 stones. The roof has been partly displaced, and because an attempt was made by the Pathans to take it down and remove it to the city, the interior is still occupied by a large stone lingam. Vangat. About 3 miles north of Vangat, far from all human habitations, are some ruined temples. In antiquity, these ruins are supposed to rank next only to those of Shankaracharya at Bumzu and at Payach. They are in two groups situated at a distance of 100 yards from each other and consisting respectively of 6 and 11 distinct buildings. In close proximity is the sacred spring called Nagbal, and by it the footpath which leads up to the heights of Harmukh, to the mountain lake of Gangabal, which was a celebrated place of pilgrimage. A great festival used to be held annually about the month of August, which was attended by thousands of Hindus from all parts of Kashmir. We see some of the ruins of those temples, disfigured, even some carvings still there, broken, damaged lingams, and the structure in ruins. The Jwalaji temple at Crew is a Jwalamukhi temple, again a Hindu shrine in the town of Crew in Pulwama district of Jammu and Kashmir. This was once an active volcano. The temple is dedicated to the deity Jwalaji. Again, she is also a Kul Devi of the many Kashmiri Hindu families. Three Kul Devis I have mentioned, two earlier, this is the third one. According to the historian Kalhana, who refers to this village Crew in Rajtarangani as Khaduvi, and writes of 360 freshwater springs being present there, a mystical diagram was drawn on the rock Sri Chakra. As per Tawrikh Hassan, occasional flames used to spark from this temple from time to time. We will now look at some Hindu kingdoms and kings of Kashmir from Tarangani of Kalhana. Gonanda I, perhaps a Rajput king who lived somewhere between 2500 BC and 1400 BC. Then he says there's enough historical reason to believe Kashmiris were Shaivites from the earliest period. Buddhism seems to have been there coexisting with Hinduism. Ashoka, between 268 and 232 BC, was the man who followed Buddhism. He is well known even in Kashmir history. His son Jaloka reverted to worship of Shiva. But a little later, the Buddhists again gained strength under the auspices of Kushan kings, Kushka, Jushka, and Kanishka. And each of them is credited with the foundation of a town after their respective names, Hashkapura, Jishkapura, and Kanishkapura. The Kushan kings also built many temples and vihars, Buddhist temples and vihars. It's said that Kanishka had held a Buddhist council in Kashmir somewhere around 78 AD. But they say it's also mentioned that the Nagas took offense and destroyed many of the Buddhist. Nagas and Pisachas were the earliest inhabitants. And then there was another, as per the legend, then there was some agreement between Nagas and Brahmins, which was achieved by Kashyap Rishi, and then the place was resettled under certain norms, which is described in the Nilmat Quran. Now, it is believed that the Nagas took offense and destroyed many of the Buddhist centers by rolling down boulders of ice from the mountains. At last, Chandradeva, a descendant of Kashyapa, interposed and restored the rights of Nilmat Puran. The next name remembered in the legends of history is that of wicked King Mihir Kula, somewhere around 515 AD, and this prince was considered cruel as death. However, followed by King Gopaditya, who was a pleasant contrast to the bad Mihir Kula. Gopaditya did much to purify the Brahmins of Kashmir and to advance their interests. Then there's we are running through selectively some portions of history from Kalhana's period. The legend of great famine during King Tunjina's reign. Then there was Matrigupt, who was appointed as king by the great Vikramaditya of Ujjain. Raja Pravarsan is said to have founded Srinagar, in the center of which was a hill of recreation. Karkota Empire between 625 and 885 AD was a powerful Hindu empire that originated from Kashmir. It was founded by Durlabh Vardhana during the lifetime of Harsha. The dynasty marked the rise of Kashmir as a power in South Asia. Lalitaditya, the most famous king of Kashmir, who ruled between 697 and 738 AD, he was the son of Raja Pratapaditya. Shortly after his succession, Lalitaditya is said to have gone off on a tour of conquest through Asia. This, after subduing kings of India, he turned his attention to Central Asia, and he was victorious everywhere. Returned after 12 years to Kashmir by way of Tibet. He raised a mighty column at Paraspur and built the temples in Mardand. He made fine canals and reclaimed by drainage large areas of swampland. He yearned for more conquests and left Kashmir for Central Asia towards Uttar Kuru. The Kashmiris besought him to return, but he died in Turkestan after a reign of 37 years. This is a picture which is there on WhatsApp and in Facebook, which generally gives an idea about uh, the rule of King Lalitaditya Muktapid. You see, most of northern central India and the Persian and Tibet parts were also under his influence. Generally, he is also referred to as the Alexander of Kashmir. We continue with the Hindu history. Avanti Varman ascended the throne of Kashmir in 855 AD, and thus it was a change of dynasty from Karkota to Utpal dynasty. It is said that Adi Shankara visited Sharda Peeth in Kashmir during the late 8th century or early 9th century. But these dates can be contradicted because there is a theory which says that the years mentioned by Raj in Kalhan in Raj Tarangani are about Saka year, not Salivana year. And if one goes deeper, there could be a difference of about 600 years between what is mentioned. But we don't, in this, I'm not going deeper into that because I'm going by the dates that are generally accepted. King Avanti Varman ruled between 855 to 883 AD. He was not a conqueror like Lalitaditya, but he built several towns and temples and brought peace and prosperity. And his rule is regarded as the golden period in the history of Kashmir. Avanti Varman's son, Shankara Varman, was also a great conqueror and is remembered by temples of Patan. While going through the Hindu period of Kashmir, it will be incomplete unless we make a special mention of one of the most outstanding and greatest sons of the soil, Acharya Abhinav Gupta, between 950 and 1016 AD. He was a philosopher, mystic, and aesthetician from Kashmir. Abhinav Gupta was born in a Kashmir Brahmin family of scholars and mystics and studied at the schools of philosophy and art of his time under the guidance of as many as 15 or more teachers and gurus. His important contribution is in the field of philosophy and aesthetics with his famous Abhinav Bharati commentary on Natya Shastra of Bharat Muni. He was also an important musician, poet, dramatist, theologian, and a logician, a personality who exercised strong influence on Indian culture. Abhinav Gupta in his life completed over 35 works, the largest and the most famous of which is Tantralok, an encyclopedic treatise on all the philosophical and practical aspects of Kaula and Trika, today popularly known as Kashmir Shaivism. Raj Tarangi also mentions about the rising powers of Palas, Dhamars, Tantris, Deveras, Langas, Khashas, and Thakurs. And it seems that when the kings of Kashmir no longer invaded their neighboring states, in India, their soldiers sick of inaction, sometimes turned to civil war. In the succeeding period of rule, it's important to mention Queen Dida, who merits special interest. This remarkable woman was daughter of King of Lahore, Punj, today known as Punj, a granddaughter of King Bhima of the Kabul Shahi dynasty. She was the wife of King Shemagupt, in whose reign she already exercised much influence on the affairs of the state. After his death in 958 AD, Dida ruled Kashmir as the guardian of her minor son Abhimanyu. It is said that during her time, Mahmud Ghaznavi twice tried to capture the valley, but the fort at Lohar, remarkable for its height and strength, proved impregnable, and he had to abandon. The Sultan had to abandon his quest. Dida's rule lasted for 23 years. Her son Abhimanyu died quite early, and after his death, he was followed by Nandigupta on the throne. Presumably, she got Nandigupta and his brother killed and proclaimed herself to be the ruler in 1980 AD. The peace with which Didarani, as she was known, Kashmir seems to have enjoyed under this strong queen, soon gave way to protracted periods of internal strife. She died in 1003 AD and left the throne of Kashmir to her family in undisputed succession, as her children had died young. She transmitted the crown to Sangram Raj, who was the son of her brother Uday Raj, the ruler of Lohar, Punj. After him, Avanta was chosen as the king, who was followed by his son Kalasha. After Kalasha's death, Harsha succeeded him somewhere around 1089 AD to 1100, and thereafter during Uchal's reign, it's said that his ministers and petty chieftains acted like highwaymen. His brother wished a civil war in the kingdom, and his treasury was empty. Thereafter, the history of Kashmir is like that of a civil war, and the Dharmas, who were well skilled in burning, plundering, and fighting, became a terror for the country. We now come closer to the end game of the Hindu kingdom. 11 kings are said to have ruled over Kashmir between 1155 and 1390 AD. The successors to the throne were weak and indolent and did not contribute significantly to the progress and development of Kashmir, unlike their forefathers. It was actually during the reign of King Simhadeva, who ruled between 1305 and 1324 AD, and some rulers before him, that many Muslims and other outside elements entered Kashmir from the passes in the north and found shelter within the Hindu rulers. The Hindu kingdom, which lasted for so many centuries, ended in 1320 when Raja Simhadev was the king. We'll, we'll come to the end game. During the reign of Zulqadir Khan, known as Dulch the Tartar, who had invaded Kashmir, the helpless Simhadev fled to Kishtwar, a nearby kingdom. The Tartar Zulu, as he is commonly known, slaughtered people, took slaves, and set fire to the city of Srinagar. But after an occupation of 8 months, Zulzu, who had depopulated the valley, found provisions scarce, and tried to get out of Kashmir by the passes leading from the south through Kulli Narwao Valley. But a snow blizzard overtook him, and he and his army and the Kashmir captives, which are about 20,000 men, women, and children, perished. That place is known as Devsar Pass and also referred to as Bhattasagar. Jonaraja, the Kashmiri historian, who described this period as Pralay, wherein the rivers and streams turned red with human blood. Ramachand, who was the commander of Simhadev, had been trying to keep up some resemblance of authority in the valley, when Zulzu departed, he moved down to Indra Court and drove out the Gadis who had come in from Kishtwar on a raid. Ramchand had with him two men, foreigners, who were destined to play an important part in the history of Kashmir. One was Shah Mirza from Swat Valley, at whose birth it had been prophesied that he would become the king of Kashmir. And the other was Rinchen Shah, who was a prince from Tibet and who had quarreled with his father and come as an adventurer to the valley. But Rinchen Shah was the one who broke away with Ramchand and, with the assistance of mercenaries from Tibet, attacked and killed him. And then he married Kotarani, Ramchand's daughter, and proclaimed himself to the king in 1323 AD. Sorry, I'm just. One morning, Rinchan saw Bulbul Shah at his prayers, and he admired that form of devotion, and he decided to convert to Islam and took the name Sadruddin. He built Jama Masjid and a great shrine for Bulbul Shah, which still exists in the name of Bulbul Lankar. After a short reign of 2.5 years, Rinchan Shah, the first of the Muslim kings, died. At this juncture, Udyan Dev, who was brother of Simhadev, reappeared on the scene and married Kotarani, the widow of Rinchen Shah. But Urvan, a Turkey, then invaded Kashmir, and Udyan Dev, who like his brother was lacking in courage, fled. But his wife collected an army and sent it under the command of Shah Mirza, who we have earlier mentioned as from Swat Valley, against the foe. This Urvan, the Turkey was defeated, and Udyan Dev returned and ruled for 15 years. On his death, Kotarani assumed power, but wielded it only for 50 days. 50 days. as Shah Mirza, or Shahmir as he is usually known, declared himself the king in 1343 AD. And in order to consolidate his power, Shah Mir proposed marriage to Kotarani, but she is said to have committed suicide. And this is how the Hindu rule ended, and we come to the Muslim rule, which began in 1943 AD and is known as Sultanate Kashmir. Shah Mir became the king of Kashmir under the name Shamsuddin and was the first of the Sultanate Kashmir rulers. Subsequently, during the rule of Sultan Qutbuddin, about 700 Sayyids and a large number of Sufi saints and Islamic scholars, accompanied by Ali Hamdan, came to Kashmir from Persia and Central Asia. In 1394, Sultan Sikandar, this is who became known as Sikandar Butshikan or the iconoclast, came to the throne and soon earned the name of Butshikan or iconoclast from intense zeal he showed in destroying the grand old temples which the Hindu Rajas had bequeathed to Kashmir before that. He attracted learned Muslims to his court, among others Muhammad Khan Hamdani, the successor of famous Shah Hamdan, who added fuel to the fire of the king's fierce zeal. He enforced the famous code of Shah Hamdan, on the lines prescribed by the second Sunni Caliph Umar. Hindu temples were felled to the ground, and for 1 year a large establishment was maintained for the demolition of the Grand Marthan temple. The massive masonry resisted all efforts, and finally fire was applied, and noble buildings were cruelly defaced. The famous code of Shah Hamdan on the lines prescribed by second Sunni Caliph, which he implemented, what did it say? Some of the things we list here: that Muslim rulers shall not allow fresh construction of Hindu temples and shrines. No repairs to existing temples and shrines will be allowed. Hindus shall not use Muslim names. They shall not ride a harnessed horse. They shall not move with arms. They shall not wear rings and diamonds. They shall not deal or eat bacon. They shall not exhibit idolatrous images. They shall not build houses in the neighborhood of Muslims. They cannot dispose of their dead near graveyards, nor weep or wail over their dead. They shall not deal in or buy Muslim slaves. No Muslim traveler shall be refused lodging in a Hindu temple and shrine, where he shall be treated as a guest for 3 days by non-Muslims. No Muslim shall act as a spy in the Muslim state. No problem shall be created for those non-Muslims who on their own will show their readiness for Islam. Non-Muslims shall honor Muslims and shall leave their assembly whenever the Muslims enter the premises. The dress of non-Muslims shall be different from that of Muslims to distinguish themselves. There was a certain method in the mad zeal of Sikandar, for he used the plinths and friezes of old temples for embankments of the city and for the foundation of Jama Masjid. He offered three choices: death, conversion, or exile. In Kashmir, you will find Kashmiri language, Raliv, Chaliv, or Galiv. These are the three words which were again used in 1990. And these are the three words you must have also seen used in the movie The Kashmir Files: death, conversion, or exile. So, as a result, many people fled, many were converted, and many were killed. And it is said that this thorough monarch burned about 7 mounds. A mound is approximately about 40 kgs. 7 mounds of sacred threads of the murdered Brahmins, which means 7 mounds would be about 280 kgs of thread. After murdering the Brahmins, that much of thread was burned. Not contented with that, all books of Hindu learning which he could lay his hands on were sunk in the Dal Lake. And Sikandar flattered himself that he had eradicated Hinduism from the valley. It was during the time of Sikandar Butshikan iconoclast, that the first exodus of Hindus from Kashmir Valley happened. Conversions, deaths, and exodus. The first exodus happened during this period, 1343 AD to 1586 AD. We, while we talk about this period of persecution, death, conversion, we also must remember Laleshwari, a Grange saint which was born and existed during that period. She was also known locally as Lal Ded, a Kashmiri mystic of Kashmir Shaivism school of Hindu philosophy. She was the creator of the style of mystic poetry called Vatsun or Vaks. Her verses are the earliest compositions in the Kashmiri language are and an important part in the history of modern literature, Kashmiri literature. She was known by various names: Lal Ded, Lalla Arifa, Lal Didi, and Yogeshwari. She is said to have left home between the age of 24 26 to become a disciple of spiritual leader Siddha Srikant or Siddha, who was a Shaivite. As part of her religious education, she traveled alone on foot, surviving on alms, and before becoming a teacher and spiritual leader herself. Laldat's works, drawn from influences and languages that made contact with the Indian subcontinent in her period, drawing from Sanskrit, Islamic, Sufi, and even Sikh cultures. She continued the mystic tradition of Shaivism Kashmir, known as Trika. We also talk a bit about the Kashmir, which has been traditionally known as Rishwar because of the Rishi order which prevails there, which prevailed. There was a spirit of spirituality which existed throughout Kashmir. You see, among the saints, you had Utpal Deva in the 9th century, Abhinav Gupta in the 10th century, Laleshwari in the 13th century, Arupa Bhavani in the 14th century, and many more who preached Shaivism. You also had Sufi saints, Bulbul Shah, Mir Syed, Ali Hamdani, who preached Sufism. Now, this Rishi order, when we say Rishwar, War is a garden. So, whole Kashmir was known as a garden of saints. The Rishi order is a religious tradition concept for the mystical teaching or spiritual practices associated with the religious harmony of Sufism in the Kashmir Valley. The Sufi saints of Rishi order influenced Kashmiris and its culture. The prominent Rishi of the valley include Rish Mir Sahib, Nund Rishi, also known as Sheikh Nuruddin Wali. The Rishi order made an important contribution to Kashmiriyat, the ethnic, national, and social and cultural consciousness of the Kashmiri people. The 17th century poet Baba Nasib sums up the impact of Rishi order thus. I quote: "The candle of religion is lit by rishis. They are the pioneers of the path of belief. The heartwarming quality of humble souls emanates from the inner purity of the hearts of the rishis. The Vale of Kashmir that you call paradise owes a lot of its charm to the traditions set in vogue by the rishis." The rishis and the Sufis were focused on seclusion, with emphasis on meditation. They were the ascetics involving in the abstinence from worldly pleasure. We continue with Sultanate Kashmir period. The next king which is remembered is that of Zainul Abidin, who succeeded the throne in 1417 AD, and he is remembered as a great king. His long reign of 52 years is even quoted by the Kashmiris as the happiest period of their history. He built many bridges and constructed many canals. The chief glory of this great king was his tolerance towards the Brahmins. It's most probable, Dr. Oral Stein quotes in his book, the most probable that by the time Zainul Abidin, by the time of King Zainul Abidin, all Hindu inhabitants except the Brahmins had adopted Islam. It would stem more exact to use henceforth the term Brahmin instead of too general Hindu, which means either the remaining converted or got killed, and what was left after this period was perhaps only Brahmins among the Hindu castes. The king repaired the wrongs inflicted on Hindus by Sikandar. He remitted the jizya tax on Hindus, taught them Persian, and encouraged them by grants of land and in many other ways. He repaired some of the Hindu temples, among others the temple on the Shankaracharya hill, and he revived Hindu learning. The results of this religious tolerance was the return of exiled Pandits, and in their train came many Brahmins from the south. The official language of the country had changed from Sanskrit to Persian during his period, and Pandits, to their credit, quickly adapted themselves to the use of Persian, in the writing of which their descendants became proficient. Actually, there's a story which correlates and says why he became such a nice king. Was apparently it's said in one version that he was a Muslim king, but inside his heart there was a Brahmin, because it said that he had once fallen sick and nobody could cure him. All the his physicians almost gave up. And then one saint walked into his kingdom and said he would give him his life provided he agreed to his terms. The, the saint, some, but he will transfer his life, his spirit to into that of the king, but his body has to be preserved. It seems the king agreed, but when he recovered, he destroyed that body. So it's said that inside him it was the spirit of that saint which prevailed upon him to do all the good things. The Zalullah bin conquered Tibet and Punjab and established his kingdom from Peshawar to Sarhind. In Kashmir, he had serious difficulty with the mischievous Chucks who had sprung into sudden notoriety. He ruled Kashmir well for 52 years and left behind him the reputation of a mild, generous, and accomplished prince. His son Haji Khan, who succeeded to the throne about 1469 AD under the name of Hyder Shah, lost power to the Chucks. The Chucks are supposed to have come from the country of Dadistan, from north of Kashmir. The Chucks were Shias, and for the first half of the 16th century, they gradually increased their power, subdued their rivals, the Magris and Rainas, and the second wave of persecution happened during the period of the Czechs, and the second exodus of Hindus from Kashmir happened during the reign of Sultan Shafi Shamsuddin Iraqi, who restarted oppression of Hindus. In 1556 AD, Ghazi Khan, the son of Qazi Chak, was practically king. The nominal kings of line of Shamsuddin were mere puppets. Ghazi Khan was a tyrant. He was followed by his son Yusuf Khan. Yusuf Khan's son Yaqub Khan was the ruler in 1582 AD when Akbar, Mughal king, made his first attempt on Kashmir. He got together a force of Bombas, and this Yaqub Khan got together a force of Bombas and Kukas who lived in the Jhelum Valley and defeated the Mughals with great loss. Though it is said that it was actually the scarcity of food in the invading army and the heavy rains which made the country impassable and thus helped the rout of the Akbar's troops. But after his temporary success, Yaqub Khan became so cruel to the Hindus and Sunnis that he sent representations to sorry, he became cruel to Hindus and Sunnis that they sent representations to Akbar and who promised them religious tolerance and the abolition of the slave trade. We now reach Mughal period because Mirza Qasim was Akbar dispatched Mirza Qasim with a force to Kashmir via Rajouri in 1585 AD. And Yaqub Khan moved out to meet him with an army largely composed of malcontents who deserted him and moved over to the Mughal side. The Mirza Qasim and the Mughal force reached Srinagar in 1586 AD. From the year 1586 to 87, the valley passed from the period of sultans of Kashmir into the hands of the Mughal emperors. Akbar is said to have visited Kashmir three times and built the fort on Hari Parbat. It is said that the fort on Hari Parbat was commenced with the view of attracting the Kashmiris back to Kashmir, whence they had what they had fled in the troubled times of the Czechs. His successor Jahangir loved Kashmir, and it is said that when on his deathbed at Bahram Gala, when he was asked what he wanted, he said only Kashmir. We continue with the Mughal period, which lasted from 1586 to 1752 AD. Jahangir's numerous visits to Kashmir were marked by the construction of lovely pleasure gardens, and he set a fashion which was followed by his nobles. At one time, it is said that there were 777 gardens in the vicinity of Dal Lake. And during Mughal rule, Kashmir was administered through subhas. On the whole, it would appear that the rule of Mughal emperors was fairly just and enlightened, and their laws and ordinances were excellent in spirit. Ittikhad Khan, one of the Jahangir subhas, was a cruel ruler, but he was energetic, for he finally crushed the Chucks. The Emperor Shah Jahan, who was also a great builder of pleasure palaces, but he was fortunate in his subhas, Zafar Khan and Ali Mardan, who are remembered with affection as kind and just rulers. Zafar Khan is said to have abolished many of the severe taxes which had been imposed by Ittikhad Khan. We come to the end of Mughal rule. The name Aurangzeb is detested by Brahmins of Kashmir for his deeds of persecution. He visited the valley only once, but his fierce zeal against the Hindu unbelievers, as they were called, made itself felt in Kashmir. And it was during his rule, during the rule of Aurangzeb, during Mughal period, that a third exodus is said to have happened. Third exodus of Hindus is said to have happened from Kashmir. As the Mughal Empire began to decay, the Subas became independent and high handed, and in the reign of the Emperor Muhammad Shah, the Hindus were greatly oppressed by Abdul Ghani and Mullah Sharifuddin. Kalashpura, a Hindu ward of the city, was set on fire, and the Hindus were forbidden to wear turbans. The Subas fought among themselves, and Kashmir fell into a wild disorder. Then during the year 1752 to 1754, during this period, 54 AD, Kashmir became subject of Pathan rule, which was the cruelest and the worst of all. Now, quickly, if we look back, again, I quote from Valley of Kashmir by Walter. The Hindu period must have been one of the great magnificence. Splendid temples and fine public works were constructed. The ruins show that Kashmir in those days were endowed with noble buildings, while potsherds of ancient cities on the Karevas and elsewhere suggest that the valley must have been very thickly populated. As Hindus living under Hindu kings, their lot must have been fairly happy, and irrigation canals testify that the Rajas did not spend all their wealth on temples, but had some thought for the cultivators. During the Sultani Kashmir period, other than the period of Zainul Abidin, there is little else that is healthy or pleasant. Czechs were in all probability as much foreigners as Mughals or Pathans, but in terms of civilization, they were inferior to both. The Mughal period, excluding the times of Aurangzeb and one or two cruel Subas, must have possessed many elements of happiness for the valley. Unquote. We move to Pathan rule now. Pathan rule between started in 1752 AD and continued till 1819 AD, nearly 140 years. The period of Shahane Durrani was a time of brutal tyranny. Men with interest were appointed as governors who wrung as much money as they could out of the wretched people of the valley. Wealth had to be accumulated rapidly as no one knew. None of the governors knew for how many days they would be there in control, and when their time would period when would they would be called back to Kabul, and would have to make room for new needy favorite of the hour. Amir Khan Jawan Sher was perhaps the best of the Pathan rulers only because he built Amira Kadal. The other Pathan rulers are remembered only for their brutality and cruelty, and it is said of them that they thought no more of cutting off heads than of plucking a flower. The first in the rank of oppressors comes Asad Khan, who boasted that the savage Nadir Shah was his prototype. It was his practice to tie up the Pandits two and two in grass sacks, sink them in Dal Lake, and as an amusement, a pitcher filled with filth would be placed on their heads, and the Muslims would pelt the pitcher with stones till it broke, and the unfortunate Hindu being blinded with filth. The Pandits who formerly wore moustaches were forced to grow beards, turbans, and shoes were forbidden. The jizya or the poll tax on Hindus was revived. Many Brahmins either fled the country or were killed or were converted to Islam. Asad Khan to Madad Khan to Mir Hazar, the governors of Pathan rule. It was from bad to worse to worst. Leather bags were used instead of grass hacks for drowning of Brahmins. And the fourth exodus of Hindus happened during the Pathan rule. Atta Muhammad Khan was the terror for Brahmin parents who, rather than allow the degradation of their daughters, destroyed their beauty by shaving their heads or cutting off their noses. The oppression became so endurable that Kashmir turned with hope to the rising power of Ranjit Singh, the Lion of Punjab. In 1814 AD, a Sikh army advanced by Pir Panjal range, and Ranjit Singh himself watched operations from Punj. However, a false rumor was started by the Raja of Rajouri that the van of Sikh army had been routed by Muhammad Azim at Hirpur, and the whole Sikh army fell back in orderly retreat. Elated by his success, Muhammad Azim now gave himself up to the delights of torturing Brahmins. Pandit Birbal Dhar, one of the leading men of Srinagar, escaped by stealth and got out of Kashmir with his son Rajkot. They reached Lahore and begged Ranjit Singh to come to the assistance of Kashmir. Muhammad Azim, on hearing of this, sent for the ladies of Birbal Dhar's family. Birbal's wife committed suicide, but Rajkak's young bride was made a Musalmani and sent to Kabul. She was converted. Muhammad Azim got alarmed when he heard of the success of Birbal's mission to Lahore, and he departed hurriedly for Kabul, leaving his brother Jabbar Khan as governor. The persecution of Hindus during the Muslim rule of about 500 years was so intense that Kashmiri Hindus had to resort to forced migrations and exoduses from time to time. It is believed that at one time the valley was left with only 11 Hindu families. Then comes the Sikh Dogra rule, which came into existence in the year 1819 and continued till independence of India. In the year 1819, Mr. Devan Chand, Ranjit Singh's great general, accompanied by Raja Gulab Singh of Jammu, defeated the Pathan governor, with little difficulty and entered Shopian. It must have been an intense relief to all classes in Kashmir to see the downfall of the evil rule of Pathans. Moti Ram was the first Sikh governor. Hari Singh and Pandit Birbal were associated with him in the government. Hari Singh quickly brought Bombas and Kukas to their senses, and Moti Ram, by his just and humane conduct, restored confidence in the valley. In the year 1825, Kripa Ram was governor. He was a mild, self-indulgent man, and Sher Singh, the reputed son of Ranjit Singh, became a nominal governor in 1835. He was followed by Colonel Mia Singh, Sheikh Mayuddin, Imamuddin in 1845. In March, it was in from after Sikh rule, we gradually moved to the Dogra rule. It was during March in 1680-46. Kashmir and the hilly and mountainous country situated eastward of the river Indus and westward of river Ravi, which had been ceded by the Sikhs to British government in lieu of indemnity, was made over to Maharaja Gulab Singh for the sum of 75 lakhs of rupees. Maharaja Gulab Singh thus became the first Dogra ruler of Kashmir, and it was entire Jammu and Kashmir, including Ladakh. He was a man of great vigor, foresight, and determination. His first care was to safeguard his new property against the restless Bombas. And with this view, he established forts which commanded the Koi Watavan, a pass of evil repute, and completely held the road over the Nasti Chana mountain. Maharaja looked carefully into the revenue administration of Kashmir. Gazing at the valley from a hill, he said that one part of was mountain, one part underwater, while the remaining land was in the hands of Jagirdars. He very soon altered this, and by dint of untiring industry and by strict supervision of his officials, made the most of the revenues of the valley. He repressed opposition and crime with a stern hand and was universally feared and respected by his subjects and servants. He spent much of his time in Kashmir and was an able, just, and active ruler and a fairly wise landlord. The condition of the people improved, and after many years, some confidence was inspired in the permanence of administration. He was a good friend to the British government during 1857 and died in that year. He was succeeded by Maharaja Ranbir Singh, who was a model Hindu prince devoted to his religion and to Sanskrit learning, kind and tolerant to the Muslims of the valley. Maharaja Ranbir Singh made great efforts to introduce new staples into Kashmir, and money was freely spent on sericulture, wines, and winemaking and hops. The latter part of Maharaja Ranbir Singh's life was darkened by the occurrence of ghastly famine in 1877, and it was from a disease that which he could never recover. In September 1885, he was succeeded by his eldest son Maharaja Pratap Singh. And like his father, he was devoted to this religion and he had done much to change and improve the position of his subjects. Anarchy and constant warfare, which had preceded the Sikh rule, were succeeded by complete peace. And most important incident of the Dogra administration was the completion of the cart road connecting India to Baramulla. Maharaja Hari Singh, the Dogra king, ascended the throne of Kashmir in 1925. We must touch upon the communal riots which happened in 1931. Again, we in the pre-independence era. It was 13th of July in 1931, which is a unique day in the history of Jammu and Kashmir. Why is it unique? Because Hindus observe this day as the Black Day, while the Muslim organizations observed it as the Martyrs' Day. The background lay that British didn't like the then Maharaja and wanted to create a distrust amongst the majority population. The genesis of this incident of 13th July laid an impression created that the then Maharaja had allegedly disrupted Muslim worship in Jammu province. A public meeting was convened by the Young Muslim Association on June 21, 1931, at Srinagar to forge unity in the Muslim leadership of the time. An unknown person started shouting anti Hindu slogans. He delivered a highly electrifying and inflammatory speech against the Maharaja, inciting the Muslim community to rise and revolt. His name was Abdul Qadir Khan, and he belonged to the Pathan family of Rampur and was associated with the pan Islamic movement of Maulana Jamaluddin Astarabadi. And it is also said that he was the cook to a British administrator and had been brought to Kashmir specially for this purpose. As a result of this speech, he was booked under sedition charges and arrested. A large number of people were drawn to the court to watch the proceedings. Sensing trouble, the venue of the trial for 13th July was shifted to Central Jail, Srinagar. About 5,000 people assembled to witness this trial. The sessions judge arrived around 1 p.m. when the public was preparing for offering noon prayers. The crowd tried to enter the compound of the jail, and the denial infuriated them. And besides shouting slogans against the Dogra rule, they demanded the release of Abdul Qadir Khan. The mob resorted to violence by pelting stones, resulting in lathi charge and firing. 21 agitators died. This news spread like wildfire, and the atmosphere got surcharged and resulted in the mobilization of mobs in greater numbers. Communal fires were ignited, and Hindus became the victims of this mad frenzy. The shops were broken open, and looted. Rioting spread to different parts of the city. Hundreds of houses and shops were ransacked, and Hindus were violently beaten. These riots left 3 dead and 163 Hindus wounded. This was a turning point in the Muslim movement of Kashmir, and the ideology became emphatically communal. Kashmir from 1931 on, entered into a new phase. This event divided the people of state on religious, regional, and ideological basis. And this was perhaps the first communal riot that took place. And this riot led to the fifth exodus of Hindus from Kashmir. The next phase in the changing dynamics of the Kashmir Valley is that of the partition. The partition of India sadly led to a major communal conflagration and a human tragedy of humongous proportion in the entire Indian subcontinent. The events of partition impacted people of Jammu and Kashmir as well. The Pakistan army, with the support of its tribal nomads called Kabilis, raided Jammu and Kashmir. This is generally referred to as Kabali raid. This happened immediately after independence in September 1947. This Kabalis and the Pakistan army had hoped to get support from local Muslim population and annex Kashmir. They did succeed in some parts of the border areas, especially Mirpur, where the army generals, some of the army officers of Maharaja's army killed their own supervisors and joined hands with the Muslim army, the Pakistan army. This army partially succeeded by annexing a part of the state territory today under Pakistan control called Pakistan occupied Kashmir, with Muzaffarabad as its capital. In reality, the Pakistani forces had entered deep into Kashmir Valley, Baramulla via Muzaffarabad, and came almost unchallenged to Shaltang and Kamarwari on the outskirts of Srinagar city. Hindus living in Muzaffarabad, Mirpur, and Poonch districts of erstwhile Jammu and Kashmir state were driven out of their homes and massacred. 38,000 Hindus and Sikhs were killed, 25,000 in Mirpur alone. Houses burnt, properties looted. The Maharaja Hari Singh apparently had dreams of independence for his state, and he was dilly-dallying on signing of the instrument of accession. With his limited armed forces, he was in no position to stop the onslaught of the invading armies. Accordingly, as per the provisions of Independence Act of India of 1947, exactly on 26th October, Jammu and Kashmir state acceded to India and became part of the Indian Federation. At the specific request of Maharaja, Indian armed forces landed at Srinagar and the invaders were made to retreat and driven out of the valley. The invaders had, in their misplaced acts of adventurism, committed heinous acts of loot, rape, and murder, which left deep scars on the psyche of the local Kashmiri inhabitants. Brutal killings in Muzaffarabad, Mirpur, Baramulla, and neighboring areas led to another exodus, the sixth exodus of Kashmiri Pandits, Kashmiri Hindus in 1947. And from 1947 to 1990, this exodus continued in a way, though in a slow manner. Now we touch upon the period between 1947 and 1990. Pandit Nehru, the Prime Minister of India, referred the matter to UN. UN recommended plebiscite under a four-step plan that included Pakistan withdrawal from occupied portion of J&K, then the reduction of Indian army in J&K, ensuring peaceful atmosphere, and reverting back to pre-1947 levels. And this was to be followed by plebiscite. However, this never got implemented. The J&K Assembly was constituted. Sheikh Mohammad Abdullah was the fifth on 5th March appointed as the Prime Minister of J&K state, and Dr. Karan Singh, the son of exiled Maharaja Hari Singh, as its Sadr Riyasat, a constitutional head. Article 370 granting special status followed, and a separate flag and separate constitution was granted. Between 1950 to 51 to 53, you had the rule of National Conference. In 1953, there was a conspiracy hatched, and Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah challenged Indian state, wanted a Swiss-type independent Kashmir. He was dismissed and arrested in 1953 under sedition charges, and Bakshi Ghulam Ahmad became the Chief Minister of Indian National Congress. 57 to 62, Bakshi Ghulam Ahmad continued as the Chief Minister. In 1962, we had the China War. China also annexed and occupied Aksai Chin area in Ladakh. Thereafter, Gilgit and Baltistan, as we showed in the map earlier, were handed over to China by Pakistan. In 64, some sort of agreement seemed to have been on the cards, but Pandit Nehru died. In 65, you had India-Pakistan war. Pakistan lost, and you had Tashkent agreement. Perhaps a solution to Kashmir could again have been discussed and sought that time, but Prime Minister Shastri died. 65 to 75 were the periods when, in the valley of Kashmir, the plebiscite front and Jamaat Islami started operations. During 67 to 72, we look at, it was the National Indian National Congress which was in power. In 71, we had a war again with Pakistan. Pakistan lost. Bangladesh got separated. and the truncated Pakistan as a nation over the years became more and more dictatorial and autocratic. The continuing political instability in Pakistan ushered a new brand of jihadi Muslim fundamentalism, which played a pivotal role in sponsoring and masterminding terrorism all over the globe. Kashmir was a specific target. In 1972, we had Shimla Agreement, and Kashmir J&K was declared a bilateral issue. 72 to 75, again you had Indian National Congress, but in 75 there was Indira Gandhi and Sheikh Abdullah Accord, where it was decided that there will be no more plebiscite, and Sheikh Abdullah became the chief minister. During 77 elections, National Conference won, and Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah continued to be the chief minister. It was 1977. There were some differences between the Chief Minister Sheikh Abdullah and Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, and Sheikh started communalization and Islamization. The first of such things was the Land Resettlement Bill, which was projected as a socialistic step, but indirectly the Hindus were marginalized. They were given no compensation for their land, and the beneficiaries by far were the cadres of the National Conference. Now, if we move to the 1980s, you notice there were Sunni Shia riots and killings in Pakistan, and these continued by both the groups. One was funded by the Saudi Arabia, and the other was funded from Iran. When we move to 80s, we notice a steady Islamization of Pakistan by Ziaul Haq. The Islamic parties, the Jamaat Islami, which had till then a very little political role, got very active in the political role during the Ziaul Haq rule. And you see, in 1947, there were just 136 madrasas in Pakistan. These grew to 30,000 by 2012, and they were mostly Deobandi schools on Wahhabi monarchy, and these led to the gradual breeding of terrorists. Again, it was during these 80s, the Harkatul Jihad Islami, Harkatul Mujahideen, these started operations in Pakistan and focused on Afghanistan. The funding was from Saudi Arabia and ISI that time, ISI Pakistan. Again, I repeat, the Kashmir problem that was generally referred to did not relate to the whole of Jammu and Kashmir state. It was essentially a Kashmir Valley-centric problem. Kashmir Muslim dominated the valley. Jammu was a Hindu majority province. Ladakh was a Buddhist majority province, and they had no problems. The problem remained within the Kashmir. The data, what I have quoted earlier about Pakistan is sourced from a book, Pakistan's Drift into Extremism, Allah, the Army, and the America's War on Terror by Hassan Abbas, a Pakistani citizen. We continue with the pre-1999. It was 1982, Sheikh Mohammed Abdullah died and Farooq Abdullah became the chief minister. In 1984, the Congress Party and GM Shah Accord came into place, and Farooq Abdullah was replaced by GM Shah, who ruled between 84 and 86. Just a second.
You think we will continue next one? We are close to 1.5 hours now.
Okay, I think there are about 15 slides left. So
no, you can.
I think we can finish it now. Not much is left for the second session.
Oh, I thought we could discuss more about future plans.
Yeah, because now it's more of it's a recent past, so not much discussion required there. So we can move fast. I guess it should not be more than 15 minutes. It's 8:30 now. What do you suggest?
We will shift it to the next one because
okay.
It's
all right. Okay. Then
we can have some. We can also have some discussions.
Yeah, sure.
Some points that you.
I'll stop here and then we will continue the next session. Okay.
So we will start from 1990, pre-1990.
Yes.
Which is your slide 87. No, you have practiced so much history, and it's very interesting, really. I watched all those slides, and actually, I wanted to ask you. You mentioned about codes somewhere.
Sorry,
Code, code
which
of
code?
conduct.
That was the code of conduct of the Caliph, which was
It
during
sounds like
yes,
those codes, those codes are still in existence today.
not exactly. See, it was enforced that time, and I wouldn't say because currently it's in some form, some parts get implemented, but not in the true code as it was during that time. Because that time, what the rule was alien. It was a foreign rule. The invaders were ruling, and they wanted to force. They wanted to complete. I mean, if you remember, that king proclaimed that he has finished Hinduism from Kashmir Valley, and this was part of his agenda.
And then you talked about, I think somewhere it mentioned about no repairs. I think that also
Yes,
continues
that's
today.
also in the
No
code.
repairs
When
to temples.
anything, yes, it is also in the code that anything which was any temple which was destroyed, no repair was allowed.
That continues.
That continued because no, then the archaeological there currently there are attempts to repair, create some because I remember seeing boards put by the archaeological department that they are going to repair this Avanti Varman. But then I was told, I mean, I had visited Kashmir in May, so I was told they had started the work, but because of COVID, they had to stop again. So there is a board put up there that they are going to repair it and create some kind of
And if you see the destruction, there is a pattern, the way they destroyed all these places.
there. Yes, the pattern is there is definitely a pattern was not just about destroying temples, it was destroying the faith, destroying idols, then destroying temples, then forcing conversion and changing the appearance. Even people were forced to grow beards. Then, I mean, in the code, you will also see your Muslims are allowed to enter your temples, but you cannot ask them to go. You have to leave. So those kind of things, and destroying the books, texts. You see, all the books, scriptures were destroyed in the Dal Lake. Even the Martan, there was supposed to be I mean, sorry, Sharda Pit, there was supposed to be a university. Where is all that? Nothing. In fact, almost the entire culture was destroyed.
Now you mentioned about the different names, the old name and the new name. Now, if you go to POK, those old names would have been gone completely, right? Everything would
Yes,
have been changed.
yes,
And there is no way to even trace back any of them. At least here you can refer,
yes.
and
Here we
those
can
are
trace. See,
forgotten.
there have been from time to time these attempts have been made. For instance, you'll see a well-known city in Kashmir Valley in India, Anantnag. It's got another name called Islamabad. The Shankaracharya Hill, which I have always known as Shankaracharya Hill, I have also seen it's called the Sleman thing, and the other one Hari Parbat is called Kohimara. So there, these names have been given, and these are names are mentioned even in the book, not just recently. It's mentioned in the book published in 19th century, 1895, during the British rule. So that means
No. While people say that not much has been done, I would think that the fact that we are discussing all this today, that itself a great turning point, right? We are able to cover all this and make people aware what's going on. Don't you
see.
think?
Yes, I would agree. In fact, when I move to the second part, I will touch upon what is the current status. Therefore, there is a sea change. This is all this persecution happened in that period. Then the gradually, though a question is from 47 to 9, after 1947, it was the Indian government. Things should have changed. Things were better in the sense that if I go back, I have lived there from up to 76. Now, we never thought 1990 would happen. I could never imagine that 1990 could actually happen. That another exodus will happen. It was impossible to think, but it did happen. Why
Yes.
did it happen? We in the second part, I will come to that. Why it was allowed to happen? What caused it? How did it happen? And what's happening today? In my reading is things are changing. The whole
No,
of
but at some
19.
point you also mentioned there are only about 11 families left, correct?
Yes,
At some point I heard.
it is in the memory of people, and it is also recorded in one of the history books that at some stage only 11 Kashmiri families were left in the valley. And it is also in the I mentioned about the saint poetess Laleshwari. There's a reference to 11 families in her poems also. So it is said that the exodus was to such an extent that at one stage only 11 families were remained. Now, if we go back to 1990 and the period 1990 to 2000 or 2005, when this terrorism was its peak and glory, that time also the number of Kashmiri Pandits in the valley reduced to as low as 5,000. And even if today, if you ask me, I don't think it's more than 12,000. My guess is the number today living in Kashmir, under including about 5-6,000 which are under Prime Minister's package, those who are have no choice but they are under government jobs. The total number must be in the range of 10 to 12,000. And if
No,
I
but
look
it's
at
interesting that we keep
just
discussing
one
more
second,
and more.
if I go back to this book of Valley of Kashmir, which is written in 1895, he there are population statistics there. The population of Hindus that time was 20%, and it reduced to about 2% by 1990.
No, but I can tell you one thing that your presentation covers sensitive points because somebody is trying to hack our system now. I don't know if you're seeing,
Oh, I
it
didn't know.
happened before also.
Yeah.
That the entire audio was shut down. I don't know how it happened. Now all sorts of filthy messages are going here. That's an indication that somebody is getting into and the sensitive material is being projected and the truth is being told. That's another indication. I could
That's
see that
another
now.
abs-. Okay.
So
Okay.
we are going to continue this. We are not going to stop this. So your next presentation, let us pick it up from there and then we will review some of the current scenario. It's very, very important. So all this what you talked about are covered in history books.
Yes, it's from history books, except the for post-British era, which is from uh, general knowledge for all of us have read, and it's there in the newspapers. It's been there in the news and all the current information. The past is from history books.
Now being a marketing guy, after this presentation usually results in a sale, right? You conclude a business. So I'm hoping that after your presentation, people will view this and work on a solution.
Yeah,
Let's hope so.
yeah.
And thanks once again. We will see you on October 1st from
Yeah.
where we left today. And I'm sure at that time, let's see, if they blocked all the messages. People are not able to post. There are a series of messages going on. I don't know whether you see that.
Oh, I
That's an
can't.
indication that your
Yeah, there are no
presentation
messages. I
has
can't see the messages.
sensitive. Yeah, there's a lot of sensitive information going on. People can't
Oh,
tolerate that.
there's a lot of crap actually, nonsense messages I can see.
Yeah, that happens when sensitive material and the truth is being spoken.
Yeah.
So thank you once again, and I will see you in about 2 weeks' time, and a lot of hard work and your presentation material that you prepare.
Yeah, so nice of you. Thank you very much, and we'll meet again soon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, viewers. As always, we find that messages like this, what you see on the screen, keeps coming whenever we talk of sensitive information, obviously the truth. But we will continue to talk about that as these are very, very important facts that we should be aware of. So we thank, as always, Kanji Mutt, all the channels for streaming our presentation, VDSP associated with us from the beginning, who are involved in all the streaming activities, Dinamalar for publishing every week about our coverage, Saturday series. Till we meet next Saturday with a new topic that we will announce soon, we will conclude this program. Jai Jai Shankara, Hara Hara Shankara.